Serious, what secret could ruin your life? That until a week ago I was a heroin user. I'd lose my kid, my family, my job, everything. Finally just finished the worst of the detox. Here's to keeping on keeping on. I don't think I'll ever tell them, even though I'm currently clean and have no desire to go back. Is it hard to go through it completely alone? This won't ruin me because I've already went no contact with my mom. But it still hurts and is a big secret I've not told anyone. When I was a kid, I had asthma pretty bad, so I'd be up all night, coughing constantly. My mom and I lived with her parents. We shared a room, so I slept in her bed often. When I was a toddler, mom would come home from work and lay down for bed, but I'd keep her awake with my coughing. Sometimes at night I'd be coughing, and she would hug me so tight that I couldn't breathe. It would really distress me that I couldn't breathe, but I knew mom loved me so much, and I didn't want to tell her she was literally squeezing me to death, because I was afraid of hurting her feelings. So I'd just tell her that I loved her so much, and she would cry pretty hard after that. Took me years, after having my own kid and treating him gently, to figure out that it's actually pretty difficult to squeeze a kid so hard that they couldn't breathe. Mom is bipolar and has had other incidents of hurting people and abandoning those in her care that need medication and can't take care of themselves. I finally put it together and figured out mom would be so agitated with my asthma that she would try to stop me from coughing by squeezing me almost to death. And then she would cry out of guilt when I told her I loved her. When I was about 5 years old, my sister, 2 years old, and I were in the backyard in a kiddie pool. When my mom went inside, I attempted to drown my sister. After I saw her lifeless, I realized that it was a big mistake, pulled her out of the pool, and called for my mom. Luckily she knew CPR, and she was life-flighted to the hospital. My mom thanked me for saving her, pulling her out of the pool. Next week was my birthday. The police, firefighters, paramedics came to my house to give me gifts and celebrate my birthday. To this day, 20 years later, I still think about it. I remember the day so vividly. Not a soul knows the real truth. Little kids often don't fully understand the consequences of life and death situations. You made a really bad childish decision, but recognized the gravity of what you'd done and immediately took action. I'd commend 5-year-old you. A normal reaction for a little kid who just did something bad is to run and hide. You didn't do that, and your sister is alive today. I forged my high school transcripts to get into university. I can't even think about the consequences to my actions if anyone were to ever find out. I'm 3 weeks shy of graduating with a degree in biology. I'm using a proxy to access websites that are blocked. I live in an Islamic country, so if the police find out about it, I could get arrested. On the outside, I'm a happily married 30-something, about to buy a house, in sync with my wife on most things like religion, kids, that things will get better for us, etc. In reality, I'm a deeply depressed, secret alcoholic, which I fear is already adversely affecting my health. But I can't stop. Don't believe in any higher power anymore, and derive little or no pleasure or satisfaction from anything. Most of this started with a sudden and untimely death of my mom, and some other family drama that happened around the same time. While I was in university, I powered my way through there because I was encouraged to by those around me, even though I wanted so badly to drop out. This is also about the time I started abusing alcohol. I barely drank at all before. My family is rather scattered now, living in different states. My wife and I are close, but I have been unable to find or make new, meaningful friends as an adult in the city I moved to for a job. I'm so stressed, I feel pins and needles in my brain/head and tongue constantly, and drink heavily, 5 to 10 drinks/units per day most of the time, sometimes more. I can hold off if I'm traveling or around family, or in a situation where I can't drink at all. I don't even get really that drunk visibly anymore, which is why I think I hide it well from my wife. There is usually an empty vodka bottle hidden in my briefcase by the time she gets back from work, and I have usually poured my first glass of wine by then to mask that I have already been drinking. I get home from work earlier than she. She thinks I'm as happy and fulfilled as she, and excited and ready to have kids and start a family, etc. etc. In truth, I'm just numb to this world. I try to love her, I think I do, and expend all of my energy keeping up the facade and affection for her. But apart from that, I have zero energy or desire for anything. I used to be athletic and still look decent, but my physical shape is fading fast. I don't have or enjoy any hobbies. I just wake up, go to work, drink when I can, and mark off the days as I get older and closer to eventually dying. I don't know what to do. Tried therapy back in the day, and meds didn't seem to help. I just am trying to make life okay for the people around me who I don't want to see be like me inside, mostly my wife. But beyond that, I feel like I have totally missed the boat and am past satisfaction or having any meaningful place in the world. Hope someone reads this. Peace. Please talk with your wife. Yes, it will hurt her to know what's really going on, but she is your partner and you ought to trust her. You cannot solve your problems alone, and you shouldn't have to. This is not a secret that will ruin your life if it gets out. It's a secret that will ruin your life if you keep it. I'm in serious debt because of a drug addiction I used to have, of which my family didn't know I had. I'm almost 2 years clean now, but I can hardly pay any bills I have, and I'm afraid to ask any family member for money because I know I can't pay them back in the near future. I'm in the same boat. I have no idea how I used to afford my addiction. I'm only 2 months clean, but can't catch up. Keep up the good work. Being sober is still better than addiction. I'm proud of you. I secretly had a relapse, more like a slip, several months ago, after being clean from meth heroin for over a year. It lasted 1 day and I think helped me stay clean afterwards. But if my family and friends found out, it would undo years of hard-earned trust and progress with them. I had moved out of my apartment to try and get clean once and for all. My drug had always been heroin, but meth and benzos were also a bit of a hobby of mine. So as my dad and I are packing up my place to move back in with him and my mom. Things are just being thrown into random boxes, stuffed into bags. Anything we can do to get the task done and done quick. I should add that I had a ton of little hiding places for my drugs in my place, and as drug users do, sometimes I forgot where I put my stash. Fast forward a few months, I'd been clean for about a year, the longest I'd ever been. Got my own place again, etc. When I'm rummaging through old boxes of things that I had hastily thrown together when moving, lo and behold, I spotted a small cup that McDonald's had at one point given away in Happy Meals. I felt that cup like a rock in my lungs. I knew what I would find inside even before that sickly sweet smell wafted over me. Bad decision number 1. Instead of walking the whole thing straight to the dumpster, I looked, smelled, felt, and knew that day was the day. I'll spare you the details of what goes on next, but it involves smoking meth out of tinfoil and a whole heaping ton of regret. In hindsight, this night was a good thing, as it really helped me along the way to being happily clean, not just frustratingly restrained. It has been almost exactly 1 year past the incident I described above, and I'm feeling really good in general. I have the kind of happiness that makes you smile in the car, just driving down the road. And what's even better is that happiness kept getting better and reinforcing itself as it drove me to make good decisions. Life was, and still is, but slips are just obstacles on the road to recovery. Good on you for recognizing the situation for what it was and moving past it. A lot of people don't understand and would probably view it as a betrayal, so it's probably best that you are keeping it to yourself. Congratulations on getting out of the life. Since nobody knows who I'm on this account, I will say it here. There is an autistic kid at school. He keeps telling me he is going to shoot up the school. Constantly asks if I want it. I always get scared and say no. He says he will not shoot me and shoot girls so I can have them. He says he wants to join ISIS and become a terrorist. The thing is that he is either making really dark jokes or he is just very mentally handicapped. I would feel like garbage if I told on him, because I don't want the autistic kid to get in trouble. He might not know what he is talking about, but at the same time, if he does something I don't think I would be able to live with myself. You have to talk to someone about this, a counselor or a good teacher. It's far better to help this guy rather than ignore him. The consequences could be devastating. My oldest son committed suicide in 2015. He shot himself in the head. Every day I talk myself out of putting myself in dangerous situations where I could possibly be killed or hurt because I miss him so badly and want to be with him. My older brother did the same in 2009. My dad, who has been an alcoholic my entire life, sunk deeper into his addiction because of it, and I'm willing to bet he feels the same way you do most days, but he sticks around, and I appreciate him for that. He tries. Yana, I'm guessing from you saying oldest son you have other kids. Please don't forget they need you too, especially now that your oldest son is gone, and please go talk to someone. There's absolutely nothing wrong with admitting you need help, and at the very least you can get some things off your chest and have someone unbiased listen to you talk for an hour. My whole professional life is built on a lie and it's about ready to come down. When I was 22 I was in a bad way halfway through my bachelor's degree, but with a building addiction to opiates and some mental health issues. Summer of that year I was in a bad car accident. In addition to broken bones throughout my body, my head went through the window and my face received severe lacerations that required hundreds of stitches to close and left me looking very rough. As tough as that was to deal with, I also now know that I sustained a traumatic brain injury that left me very confused, angry, and overwhelmed by life in general. I wanted to keep up appearances, so after taking 3 months off to recover I tried to go back to school. Within the first week I knew I couldn't handle it. Too many questions about what happened, too much anxiety, and I had lost pretty much all my coping skills. When I got overwhelmed, which happened often, I would feel sick and scared and literally forget where I was and what I was doing. It was frightening and embarrassing, especially for someone like me who had always had high expectations placed on my shoulders by those around me. I had lost pretty much all my friends at this point, and in my mental state, I thought that those who remained would abandon me if they knew how much I was struggling. So, I told everyone that it was going great. Every day I leave the house for 6 hours and drive. Sometimes I would stop in a parking lot. Sometimes I would just keep driving all day. I would find cheap used textbooks at college bookstores so that I could bring them home and study. I created elaborate lies about my classes and my professors in order to have stories to tell. When people asked how it was going, I kept telling myself that I was just doing this until my brain worked again, and that next quarter I would go back for real when I could actually handle it. Problem is, things just kept getting worse, and as time went on I became less able to get back on track. This went on for 2.5 years, until I was supposed to be graduating. So, I lied about that too. I forged transcripts and came up with stories of why I didn't want to work in the field of my degree and hoped to move past it. I got a labor job and slowly found things working themselves out as my brain chemistry improved, and steady work kept me from completely destroying myself. Eventually I had to move. For the first time in over a decade, I was finally free of my opiate addiction and starting to feel part of the world again. But I was still carrying the lie of my college degree. I volunteered in some places related to that field and they really liked me. They liked me so much, in fact, that they hired me on an emergency basis. No transcripts required, and I've worked there ever since. Now, 3 years into my sobriety and seemingly a lifetime removed from the pain of those years, they want to promote me to a career level job that I would absolutely love. I'm so good at what I do, and it brings me so much joy. But this promotion would come with scrutiny and background checks that I know I can't stand up to. When I was so depressed, I honestly didn't think I'd even live this long. So while I knew that my lies could create this situation, I never prepared for it. Worse than losing this job would be having everyone around me find out what happened. So I'm at a point now where I have to quit what I love because they like me too much. I plan to go back to school for real, and I think I'll do well. But the shame and regret of this situation is something I don't think I'll ever shake. Most people are under the impression that I do very well when it comes to talking to women. But not only have I not had actual sex in months, but the last time I did have sex I was our edition. I was out of town and I stumbling home from a bar. I was so drunk that I couldn't find my hotel, so I decided to hitchhike. A guy picked me up and took advantage of me. I was so drunk that I only remember bits and pieces. I can't remember his face either. It doesn't really affect me that much because I try to pretend it never happened. When I do think about it though, it does hurt a lot. I never thought it would happen to me. I was so wrong. I had a baby with sperm donated from a man who advertised on Craigslist. If my very religious family found out it wasn't an accident, I would be completely shunned and disowned. I'm a female who is ugly. No, that's not the secret. But I am ugly because I have a facial deformity that I was born with. I've never had a long-term partner and only had sex a few times in my life. My biological clock was ticking loudly and I desperately wanted a child. There wasn't going to be time enough to meet someone, and my odds were non-existent as a middle-aged, ugly female. I own my home, have a career, but I didn't want to lose all my savings to pay to have it done through a clinic and sperm donation, etc. It would have been at least $15,000 per try. My chances of adopting were also almost non-existent, as any woman looking to adopt her baby out isn't going to pick the ugly middle-aged lady to adopt their baby. Plus is crazy freaking expensive. I wanted the money I had in savings, etc. toward raising the child. So I turned to Craigslist and got it for free. My child is a preschooler now, and I've never been happier or more fulfilled. I pinch myself every day because my child is in my life and I feel so effing lucky. Every day is a dream come true, and I savor each and every moment. I try to be the best mom I can be in every way. Parenting really makes you take a long, hard look at yourself and how you show up in the world. I parent from my heart. I regularly send pictures and updates to the generous and selfless man who trusted me on a handshake. I posted about this a few years ago, and there's more detail. Finding out that I have a mental disability in my whole life, people have hidden it from me, treated me the same, as if I was normal. Wow, this is actually my biggest fear, that I'm actually a bit mental and the fam just plays it off like no big deal. Let's make him feel normal to fit in. Am I actually special? I get paid a six-figure salary for a standard 40-hour-a-week corporate job for a massive well-known company. In a given week I do maybe an hour of actual work. The rest of the time I'm on Reddit or YouTube slacking off. I thought when I got this job that eventually someone would figure out I don't do anything all day. But here I'm 14 years later still doing F all and getting paid a lot for it. Welcome to it, eh? Sounds a lot like my job. I would rather be super busy all the time. My wife and I have been talking, and it's stupid tough to leave this job. I'm bored of my A and want something challenging. About a few weeks every month I get that, but the downtime kills me. However, for the money, I'll never find a gig that pays so well. And is this easy? My boss and employer are great. The money is great, but being bored sucks. Buy stocks or learn a language. I've been in a strictly sexual relationship with a first cousin for the last 5 years. We only ever saw each other once or twice a year growing up, before she moved to the other side of the country, and then never really saw or interacted with each other again until 5 years ago, when she moved back. What started as us meeting up once in a while has become a regular thing in the last few months. It's escalated to the point where we are now sexting each other. I'm scared to death of what might happen if anyone in our family finds out, but I don't want to stop what's happening either. Here's the story. It all started out very slow, before it escalated into full-on sex. I was informed by another cousin of ours, and asked to help her move, since I was free at the time. We started hanging out throughout that summer, and then one afternoon we had brunch, and then went back to chill at her apartment. It was a super hot day, so we thought, let's just go indoors and relax and watch some TV or a movie. I can't remember what we were watching, but we were chatting the whole time too, just talking about our relatives and what we were looking to do with our lives and careers. After a while she kind of just leaned on me and got comfortable, and I threw my arm around her, almost instinctively, and were just hanging out like that for a bit. Eventually she gave me a lingering look that was kind of asking what's happening here, and we both went in for a kiss. We were both shocked that it happened, but we got over it fast and started making out and running our hands all over each other until my hand was up her skirt touching her through her panties, and then I realized what we were doing and stopped it from going any further. We both came to our senses and stopped before anything went any further. We decided to forget it happened and moved past it, but every time we met up after that we'd make out and push our boundaries until we eventually ended up having sex. Afterwards, We were meeting up regularly until we both got really busy with work and only met up on occasion. We completely stopped when each of us had a significant other, but would start hooking up again every so often when we are single. As mentioned before, now it's become a regular occurrence where we hook up multiple times a week, and we've been sexting with each other now. As I wrote in the other cousin guy's post, this is not as rare as you imagine. I always thought that, not op, since you weren't raised with them. There's nothing mental stopping you from being attracted to them aside from the judgment of society, and you still see them fairly often, so it must happen a lot, right? TL. Doctor, I killed my family one night about a decade ago. When I was 8 years old, I couldn't sleep at night, so I was just walking around the house, looking for something to do. It was winter, so there was fire in the fireplace. I started playing with it, throwing stuff into it, watching how it burns. At one point, a big log rolled out of the fireplace. As a kid, I started to panic. I tried to cover it with a blanket, then ran out to the kitchen to get some water. When I came back, the whole living room was on fire. It was a wooden house. I was terrified. Ran out of the house. Literally within a minute, it was burning like crazy. My older sister, younger brother, and mom, who was pregnant at the time, all died instantly. Dad was working a night shift. No one really questioned me. My room had window, and I said I left through it. When I saw the fire, the real cause has never been found. My dad was absolutely devastated, and a few weeks later shot himself. I found his body. I've been living with my grandparents ever since. No one knows what really happened that night. I spent half of my life with therapists. I hate myself. Have a severe depression. Attempted a suicide a while ago. Don't know if it counts, but when I was 15 I looked like a hybrid of McLovin and Napoleon Dynamite, and was bullied by this mammoth fat lineman at school. This kid easily weighed 3 times as much as me, but one day I got sick of ish. This day also happened to be the day before our final exam in world history. While he was at wrestling practice after school, I went into his locker and stole his textbook, student guide, and notebook and took them home with me that night. The next morning, I got to school extra early and put all of the stolen stuff perfectly back in his locker. He rolled in that morning beeline to the administration about how someone stole all his stuff. But when he walked them over to his locker and his stuff was sitting right there, he looked like a total dumbass, and the admins refused to help him check the cameras. Pretty sure he failed the test too. At the time, I'm pretty sure he would have beat the living F out of me had he found out. TLDR, I was a nerd and got revenge in classic nerd fashion. As a police officer, I rarely, if ever, arrest people for possession of marijuana, something that if found out would probably get me ostracized and possibly fired, since I work in a conservative department. Throwaway time. When I was really young, 9 to 13, I went on Omegle and dual masturbated with another guy who could have been anywhere from in his late 40s to his early 60s. I'm a guy and I'm straight. After it was over, I stupidly told him I was not 18. He said I know, and nonchalantly skipped me. That's really weird. Good thing you'll probably never see him again. I'm mostly just laughing at the idea that a 9-year-old thought he could pass for 18. I was debating posting until I saw the biggest throws post. Very similar, only it was me and my older brother. Not worried about a throwaway as this is my FIT account anyways. Long story short, I was maybe 9 or 10. Him 14 I believe. He'd trick me into play wrestling, then end up on top. Then promise me my favorite snack if I take it just right. This only went on for 2 years. That's the gist of it. This may sound stupid, but I never thought much of it until recently. I'm 29. Since it was the only time he did anything remotely homosexual, at least to me. This is literally my first time sharing this with anyone ever. I'm not as shaken up about it as I probably should be, considering the certain porn addiction it led to and my virginity to this day. It's okay to not feel shaken up about it. When I was 13 I was read by 3 guys a little older than me in a field. I'm a girl, if that even matters. I honestly hadn't even talked about it with anyone until I was 18 heading to rehab, and the woman doing my intake asked if I had any trauma. At first I said no, and then said wait, this happened. Does that count? She seemed shocked by how unfazed I was. I thought there was something wrong with me because I talk about it as if it was nothing. Trauma affects everyone differently. I have subconscious issues with sex and intimacy from it, but on a conscious level it barely makes me feel anything. You're allowed to feel however you feel about it. Don't let anyone, including yourself, invalidate your story or your feelings towards it. Feel free to PM me too if you ever want. I'm always open to listening or sharing.